is this?
I don't know, but we're on.
What is this? Okay. I'm trying to turn my phone on silent, guys. Hi.
Hey, so we owe everybody a little bit of an explanation. So
whoa, did I have people upset?
Man, so we need to back up just a second and tell people where we've been, because this time it was not Jordan's fault. It was somebody else's fault. There's only two of us, so not to point the finger of blame, but
what did I do?
You moved, man. You moved.
There's been so much happening.
Your life is nuts right now.
It's so much of a toss-up.
It's all good.
Between work and moving, like, I don't remember, but I moved a whole entire house.
You did, and like on like a Thursday or something like that.
Mm-hmm. It was on a Thursday. It was on a random weekday.
You basically told all your friends, like, I don't need you. I'm gonna do this by myself.
Okay, so here was the situation. We told some people, like my brothers.
Sure.
And one of my brothers was like, yeah, sure, I'll absolutely help you out. The youngest.
Of course.
And then guess who didn't show up?
Bailed.
Brother. The other one had a valid excuse. But so the situation that had arisen was that I only had we had that day.
Yeah.
Because the remainder of the days were already taken.
Yeah.
And I no longer wanted to pay rent for our house for,
I get
you know
it.
what I mean?
I totally
so
get it.
we just up and outed.
When you're paying rent, it's a totally different story.
Yeah.
Like when you buy a house, it's like, it's just different. And then when you buy a house, it's also different because everything is like adult, geared, where rent is kind of like, hey, I need a place to live. You want to let me live here? And they're like, yeah, it's $500 for a security deposit in case you blow the thing up. And then, which I always thought was funny, security deposits are always crack me up because I'm like,
it doesn't cover anything.
It just like hey, $250 sound good? Like, is that good for you? You're like,
covers my cleaning supplies.
And then if you bail out, like, it's gonna cost you like $5,000 to
I
fix
don't
everything.
understand security deposits either.
Yeah, I never got
but
that.
I hope I get mine back.
Did you find out yet or not?
No, I don't know where landlords went because we had it scheduled for a final walkthrough.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this place was clean.
Yeah.
Everything was clean. Everything was freshly painted.
If you guys didn't tune in a couple of weeks ago, Kim talked about cleaning the bathroom with two boys, and that was very entertaining. So I had to clean the main bathroom, which was so great. So I left that place immaculate because I just couldn't. I would feel like such a butthead if I. There are people like you still left in this world that are actually going to take care of stuff. So, on behalf of the people in this world, I just want to say thank you.
Hey,
thank you for being one of those people who cares enough to leave things better than they found it. That means so much to me.
So I cleaned it. It was just we needed to go. It was just.
When do you do the walkthrough? Is it soon?
It's this coming weekend.
And
I'm not even going to be here.
So it's fingers crossed that it's going to be okay.
I have not even gotten to enjoy this house. Today and yesterday were the first days.
Yeah.
And evenings that I've been home.
You're talking about your new house.
My new house.
Yeah.
Because work right now is insane, but then on top of that, just life is just compounding. So it's papa.
Yeah.
And so we just constantly are going, and I'm I have not been home except to sleep until the day before we recorded this.
Well, and for people who don't know you, in regards to your job, you travel a lot.
I do.
As opposed to you used to be in town and you used to have your own restaurant, and so then it was just it was hey, we go from point A to point B. And now you're on the road sometimes 2-3 hours a day.
Yeah,
if not longer.
Yeah, so last week I was in Chicago. And then this week, I'm going to be in Michigan and Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
Grand Rapids over to Chicago, down to Indianapolis. Not all necessarily for job, but I mean, there's
still
that's
a
much
significant amount of
traveling.
Yeah.
And in a couple of weeks, I have to go up to Traverse City. I don't know if it's Traverse or Traverse.
I think either or.
No, I've been corrected. I just don't remember.
Well, if you live there, I'm sure people are adamant about it, but we don't live there, so we call it whatever you want.
Exactly.
People call it Bremen all the time. I'm you don't live here. It's fine. I'll let you go.
So I am going north to Grand Rapids first, then up So like I travel
all over the place
a ton.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had to like stay the night or anything, but it's just like been constant where I am in my car with customers.
Yeah.
I was in Augusta, Michigan. Like I'm just
random places.
I'm in so many different places now. And so I just haven't been home. So this is my first time that I've been home.
Congratulations. I don't know if you know this or not, but you bought a house.
I bought a house. My husband and I bought a house. We are so now we're like in this, well, not yet because we're so busy.
Yeah.
We have a couple of months.
Yeah.
And then it is go time on like full on.
Then you got renovations
and we are completely renovating this house,
which is great because you have the summer. Like
we have
different.
the summer. There's two projects that we're kind of doing. We don't have a fence and we have two dogs.
Yeah,
one dog is too dopey and she's just like, wow, where's my mom at? And she doesn't go any farther than our yard.
Yeah.
Our other dog though has holy cow, major anxiety, and like the second that the door is even like cracked open, he's like, I'm out, and like he's gotten out twice.
Oh,
we've lived there for a week and he's gotten out twice.
You're like, this has got to stop.
And he's just like gallivanting through the neighborhood, just like peeing on trees. You know, just doing.
He's trying to find his place in this world.
This world is where we put him.
I love that you're like, we have one dog who loves us, understands that we feed him. Like, he's like, life is so good. Your other dog's like, there's got to be better. There's got to be.
Which is crazy because that one came from the pound. Like, he's been 2.5 years.
He knows how life is. He's like, man, back when I was free.
We know he wasn't free. So I'm like, you have it good. You've got a real good home, bro.
He's like, these two kids, there's got to be better. It's an Oliver and Company story backwards in reverse. He's like, we got to get out of here.
That's hilarious. So that's why I wasn't here. But yeah, we had quite a few people.
All that to say, it happens, guys. Like, it happens. Life gets in the way. It's fine.
We're trying to take the necessary steps to ensure that we have weekly.
I'm glad that you got feedback, though, that people were upset.
Yeah. Like,
that's good.
Somebody was like, do you understand it makes me sad? And then like all caps was like, I mean sad when there's not an episode.
So we get zero feedback when we ask you questions, but if we don't post an episode, people are like, hey,
where are you at?
What is happening?
We did. Okay, so
it's kind of like your dog. Like, hey, why didn't you feed me? What?
So that segues nicely in. We got awesome feedback from the car episode.
You did.
So I've had quite a few people talk to me about their cars and like what their first cars were. I gotta find the story because it was a really, really good one.
You're good. Go for it.
So somebody had messaged me. That's what it is. So her first car was a 1997 Buick LeSabre.
Whoa.
Her grandma and her had
going golfing tomorrow.
So in her car, the gas gauge didn't work, so she had to track her mileage to know when to fill up.
Oh man, you had to do like the odometer reading, like.
So Josh had a truck like that.
Oh no, 500 miles.
And I never knew what to do. So just like her, because she was like, eventually she started keeping gallons of gas in the trunk. I started keeping gallons of gas.
That can't be good if it like spills over. You know, like you do like a detour and you're like, you miss a turn and all of a sudden like your car's like just stinks like gas. You're like, oh no.
Have you ever gotten gas on you?
Oh yeah, it doesn't go away.
It doesn't. I don't know how because like in my head I'm like, just put some lemon on it. Like
No,
that's not it.
No, it's like it's you have to like get a shower with like a ton of soap and water. You actually have to wash your hair.
Yeah. It's everywhere. It's
just so bad.
Just like
my parents used to do that when like it got paint on my hands. They're like, we'll just put some gas on it, which could be a problem. You don't remember that?
No.
Oh, this is a 90s kid thing through and through.
Put gas on paint?
Oh, so like you would be like painting something or like whatever. And like my dad was constantly like, well, let's just go out and get some gasoline and we'll like, that'll take it off. And sure enough, like he would just dump gas on my hands and he's like, rub them together.
First layer of your skin.
Yeah. He's like, just rub them together.
Burns, Dad.
Hey, you laugh, but I guarantee you, if you ever got something off your hand that wouldn't come off with gasoline, let me know. I guarantee you it's probably more than you think. It's like drinking out of the hose outside. You know how you just did it. You didn't even think about it.
I still kind of do that. Like on a hot day, I ain't going all the way back into
100%.
my house. Like there's the water right there. It's fine. What's a little lead poisoning?
But then my dad would be like, would just like let me go, and I'm like, well, I smell like gas though. He's like, just go wash your hands.
I wondered why the neighbors stopped inviting me into their house. I thought it was weird. I was really nice to them.
He's like,
turns out you smell like gasoline.
Gasoline, like all day long. Yeah. But hey, no paint on my hands.
CPS like checking him. Like people are calling like, this poor little boy always smells like gasoline.
You seen that kid, pastor's kid running down the road? This guy smells like gasoline.
I know gasoline. I don't know if we're going to actually get to the topic, guys. Did you know gasoline kills wasps?
Gasoline supposedly takes off DNA, too. Did you know that?
Which is great for our topic if we actually get to it.
Oh, man. Do you want me to just give the intro then? So we can move into it. How's this even going to go?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you what the topic is going to be.
All right. So hold on. So everybody, if you've made it this
Welcome
far.
Back from a week, 2 weeks of us not talking.
Yeah. You are listening to the world famous Grease and Grace.
It's a sunshiny day.
Man.
The windows are open.
It's glorious outside.
Ain't a care in the world.
Kim and I could detour in a major way. So hard, actually, that gasoline would spill out the back of our car. Anyway, if you're new, we do want to say welcome. Like, we do pick up new people all the time.
I love it.
Yeah, so my name is Jordan. Across the table from me, as always,
Kim.
Yep, and we basically just take a dive into the stuff that makes us just say, man, what is happening in this crazy world? And so we look at the greasy side of things. Those are things that frustrate us, drive us nuts. You know what? Just full transparency. This is like a counseling session that just went south. So let's put it this way.
We're not therapists, by the way.
We are the therapists you wish you had.
Very, very true.
We're the counselors that you wish you actually went to.
Yeah.
I like that. We might have to keep that around.
I do.
Maybe put a bumper sticker, Grease and Grace, the therapist you need, not the one you want.
Not the one you got. Oh, man.
And then we try sometimes with the few moments that we have left looking at the graceful side of things, which is, like, hey, there's got to be something good in this. So if you haven't taken a deep dive, just go backwards and look at all of our episodes. And I mean, you'll get the hint.
Listen to the car one, the driving one.
Oh, the driving one's a good one. Yeah. So today, though, basically what happens is Kim is going to give you a topic, and then I'm going to explain it, and then we're going to look at it. But you said it segues pretty good.
Yeah.
So today's topic
because you were talking about taking DNA off of your hands using gasoline. So
I wouldn't recommend. Like, I don't even know when you
don't
need that.
do it unless you are part of true crime, which is what we're talking about today. The true crime community. So Jordan is going to be looking up what that is. I don't even know if there's like a definition. I mean, I'm sure that there is, but
there actually is.
Is there? Yeah. So
if you're talking about the genre of nonfiction,
like,
is that what you're talking about?
True crime, anything.
Yeah.
True crime, anything. Is it nonfiction? Because it's based off of real things.
It can be. Like,
I'm talking about like based off of real things.
Okay, so let me give you this won't take a while. I'll summarize it as best as I can. But basically, it's a genre of nonfiction work in which an author examines a crime, including detailing the actions of people associated with and affected by the crime and investigating the perpetrator's motives. True crime works often deal with violent crimes such as murders and serial killers, including high-profile cases like John Benet Ramsey, O.J. Simpson, Pamela Smart, who I'm not familiar with. I don't know who that is. She was an American woman who was convicted of being an accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy to murder, and witness tampering in the death of her husband, Gregory Smart.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is that the one that has a show? There's a show about it.
Maybe. And more obscure and unsolved cases that the author wishes to bring wider attention to. True crime may use a journalistic style with a focus on known facts, or speculative style with a larger focus on the author's personal conclusions regarding a crime. So the reason they probably say it's nonfiction is because it documents all the content to convey that information.
But I'm talking just like the culture around true crime. Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
It is very, so this is this is going to be an interesting discussion for sure because
you're part of a true crime documentary.
I'll tell you where my true crime thing first started.
Okay.
And then what we can do is we can obviously give the grease and grace side of it, which we will.
Yeah.
But a note of concern, maybe what do you call it? Like a warning before we go any further when we get into some of these topics and stuff like that.
What is it called?
I would be very cautious in walking down this genre, for lack of a better word, because sometimes when you get obsessed with something like that, it can lead to places that you don't want to be. And I think you have to be very careful when you get into this whole, conversation, because it's curiosity at its finest for a reason. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, why am I obsessed with this when it's probably not healthy?
Yeah, I just don't understand the obsession. That's a great.
People love sin, especially when it's not your own. Yeah. That's the only thing that I could say is full transparency, both of you and I are believers. So we would say that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
If you don't know that by now, then
yeah, that's who we are. But what I'm saying is so you and I would both approach this and saying that we're all sinners, but then at the same time, there's also a fascination with sin.
Yes.
I think there's a big time fascination with well, why did he do that? Or what did he do that for?
Yeah.
And how normal people don't do that stuff.
Yeah.
So when you see somebody do it, you automatically go, whoa.
Yeah.
You fell off the
You're not okay. You're not okay,
How much gas did you keep in the trunk of your car?
We now understand the reasoning behind it.
Oh, goodness. So let me tell you where my not a fascination, but I will tell you kind of maybe where it started. Okay. And then how it's it's gone.
Where you think it started, or where your specific...
I would say it started, I think it started all the way back from cops, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Where people finally got an opportunity to see what, police officers do. They were that's interesting, and so it's fascinating. Yeah. There's a reason Cops has been on for as long as it's been on.
Is it still on?
I think so.
I'm a look.
You can look. For me, in the mid-2010s, there was a podcast, and it was called Serial. Do you remember that?
No, because I didn't listen to podcasts for a really long time.
It's riveting, Kim. Riveting.
They still have episodes.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And there's so many more.
So Serial was an investigative journalism podcast. It was hosted by a girl named Sarah Koenig, I believe her last name is. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But she narrates this nonfiction story over multiple episodes. And basically what happened was, this guy... goes free because of her journalistic endeavors.
Oh,
it's crazy.
He gets acquitted.
Yeah, his name's Saeed. And it's still a thing today because he just went through something or whatever, but it pops up all the time. And it's really fascinating because it is one of those cases where you're somebody's journalistic endeavor can legitimately change the course of a human's.
So he didn't.
Yeah, he always maintained his innocence, and then what ended up being acquitted, I believe.
So it wasn't a podcast that was to highlight his crime necessarily; it was to highlight his innocence.
Yeah, so she basically narrates all this it's older, it was way back from 2010, and then she kind of went into other stories too, but this was the initial one. But it was in 1999. There was a killing of a girl. Her name was Heyman Lee, and she was an 18-year-old student at Woodlawn High School in Baltimore County. And then season 2 focuses on the sergeant, season 2 just goes to a different story or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the first season, basically, she starts going through this whole thing and is these things don't add up. She walks through the homicide. Long story short, dude goes free.
Wow.
As a consequence, he does not have to return to. Saeed's first trial ended in a mistrial, but after a 6-week second trial, Saeed was found guilty of Lee's murder on February 25th, 2000. He was given a life sentence. September 19th, 2022, a judge citing the prosecution's failure to hand over potentially beneficial evidence to the defense overturned the conviction, and after 23 years in prison, he goes free.
Wow.
And a lot of it is said.
I never knew that.
Yeah, a lot of it was credited to like that whole podcast. It's so well done too. It's so well done.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first like
I was like, whoa.
True crime podcast, would you say?
Maybe. Yeah. Investigative journalism probably would be something that I would say. What about you? Like, do you have like a thing where you kind of tipped it, or is it you just?
No, okay.
I'm not into it, by the way. Just I want to throw that out there.
So I mean, when you say like cops, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that is true crime. But like, for starters, when did like we turn into this like obsession with murder? So this topic came.
Or
long
crime,
ago.
For example. I would even say crime. Yeah.
This topic came long ago from our episode where we talked about celebrity culture.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, you guys totally forgot to talk about serial killers because like that's a whole celebrity level, which is wild to say. And so I was like, oh, we should probably just like grace that entire topic.
Yeah.
But like, when did it turn from just like, not saying that cops was innocent, but it was, just like everyday life of being, on the streets, in the service, chasing the bad guys kind of a thing. When did it turn into the obsession that it is now? Because I have not been like a big true crime person, but I have a lot of friends who are. And, like, I remember when I owned my restaurant, I had an employee who she would listen to them, and she was my baker. Yeah. And so she didn't come in until like after hours. So she would listen to it at night as she was baking, and it would be playing. But then she's like, I remember her saying she would be nervous to like leave because our back door went to the alley. Yeah. Even though it was right next to the police station. Yeah. Like she was like, I was always nervous to leave. And I was like, stop listening to that stuff then. Like, it's scary.
I wonder if it turned from like horror movies over. Cause like
it's true horror movies?
Like, well, that's what I'm saying. I think people, it's one thing if you're like, I mean, I remember like in the 80s, right? Freddy, Jason, all that other stuff. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, stuff like that. But then all of a sudden when it becomes true, like now people are a little bit more intrigued because that like actually really happened. So now people are like, oh man, what's going on? Like, for example, when Oswald was charged with the assassination of Kennedy, like Jack Ruby kills him. And people just like were fascinated about it. Yeah. But if you have like, for example, school shootings and stuff like that, the press will put the name out, but law enforcement will constantly, there's a big like underground push where law enforcement is like, please don't say the person's name who committed the crime, because a lot of times that person just wants the fame and recognition for the assault. Yeah. And it's like you're making somebody famous because you've done that. Yeah. But
yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, so I haven't been like big into true crime. Yeah. The only thing that I ever really watched was I don't know if she has a podcast, but she had a YouTube channel. Yeah. And she would do makeup and she would talk about murder and mystery. But I just liked the way that she explained the murders. Like there was a comedic kind of sense to how she talked about these, but she always spoke about murders and things of that sort and the true crime things that happened like in the 1800s and like early 1900s. Like these were old crimes from long past that like in just interesting different crimes that she would be talking about. But there's people who talk about like very recent ones.
But I think it's the fascination, right? Like, and this is going to sound so morbid, but it's true. Like, I think people have, whether they want to admit it or not, they have internal thoughts about those things, but they never act on it. Yeah. Like there's people all the time. Like, how many times you hear somebody say like, "Oh, I could have just killed her," and you're like, "Whoa!" Like somebody actually did. Yeah. And like that, I think is the crazy thing is whether people want to be fully transparent and admit it. It's basically like, I didn't do that, but I've had similar thoughts. Maybe not to that extent. Maybe they were even like on the very, very top surface. But I mean, again, I kind of go back into like our beliefs. It's like Jesus says all the time. He's like, hey, you're mad at this person because they're doing it, but you think it, like, and it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah. And which I think is a lot of, like, honestly, such a hard thing for people to grasp.
Oh yeah. Cause they're like, I would never do that.
I would never, but you thought it.
Yeah. And so you kind of did in your head, but and maybe that's a fascination with it.
Yeah. I don't know. So anytime that I have ever, I don't know what the word is, because it's not like I've like deep dived in, but I find the thought process fascinating.
Yeah.
Like I, long ago, for some reason, was like, I'm going to be a psychology major.
I think everybody was at one point. They're like, man, I really want to crack this code.
Not many people have covered it. Like my sister-in-law is a psychologist now. Good on you, girlfriend. That is not a life for
Way
me.
to
like
be.
the psychology 101, I was like, I'm so lost.
The last thing I want to do is sit in a room and yeah.
But like, I love how hearing like how people think, like what makes people tick and stuff like that. And so anytime that I have like listened, it's more of a curiosity of the mind than it is of the crime.
Yeah.
And so like I remember watching, I think it was a documentary about Ed Gein. Don't look that one up.
Don't look any of this up.
Don't look any of it up. But his crimes were wild.
Yeah.
And just like hearing the background of his like childhood, the poor kid didn't have a mom who like hugged him.
But you can't blame that.
I
Like
know.
you can't look at that and be like,
know.
oh, that's the reason you do what you do.
Yeah. I mean, like anyways, it was an analysis. It was an analysis of like, because everybody always seems to think that like serial killers are psychopaths or sociopaths, and they're not. There's other like underlying mental illnesses that they are suffering from that just didn't have a name.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have the research for it. And so it's fascinating to me to kind of understand like this person was not a psychopath, like you say, because that's the terminology that we have is just, oh, that person killed somebody, it's a psychopath. But like understanding the inner workings and understanding like the mental side of how they think is what fascinates me. So I wonder if that's like.
Do you want the definition of psychopath?
Yes.
Yeah, this is really interesting.
I've watched a couple different things, but I can never like.
A person having, there's two definitions. A person having an egocentric and anti-social personality marked by the lack of remorse for one's actions. An absence of empathy for others and often criminal tendencies.
Yeah. So they don't understand sadness. They don't understand happiness.
That's interesting.
So like that aspect fascinates me, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's true crime. That's just like
it's just a category of
the
person.
differentiation of their minds as like why did you act as opposed to why we don't act upon the thoughts that we have. You know what I mean?
That's interesting that psychopath is characterized by an extreme lack of empathy. Like they just don't.
They don't understand it.
They don't get it. I wonder how many people are like that, because instantly you would automatically think like serial killers are like that, but like were they empathetic? Who knows? We don't know.
Well,
or people even who commit crimes, I think are would be an interesting endeavor too, right?
There's so.
Like for example, let's just take like the guy who steals something at the grocery store, right? If he's a psychopath, which is it just sounds so like over the top to say that, but he would have a lack of empathy for the people who own that store and they bought that item.
Yes.
So by definition, you could look at it and be like, yeah, he's a psychopath because he just doesn't have empathy for like those individuals.
I think there's other underlying things.
I'm sure there's more to it, but I think that's. I think that's interesting because like some definitions go into it and they say psychopaths may also be manipulative, charming, behave in an impulsive and risky manner, and lack conscious or guilt and refuse to accept responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
That defines like 4 of my friends.
We need their names. We need their names, and we need to have somebody just like.
I'm not saying which one.
Like one of them is your husband, Kim. No, I'm kidding.
I never said that.
No, I don't think that.
I just think that's interesting. Like lack conscious or guilt and refuse. But that defines a lot of people I know who are in trouble with the law. They just don't have that empathy. They don't have like. yeah, so what? That person had what I wanted and I took it.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. I don't think you can do that, buddy.
I don't think that's how that works.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm always interested in it for that aspect of it. And I wonder if that's why people are obsessed with it. I don't know. I've also heard people, which is wild to me, like people listen to it to like understand the signs if they're around a serial killer, and I'm like, shut up,
don't do that,
stop it, because then everybody's gonna be a serial killer.
I mean, because right now you and I are just racking up our friends here going like, man, maybe we should get some new people. We're looking across the table even going like, maybe we shouldn't be at this table. I hear you like 100%. There's so many people who you're like but you don't need that, and that's where I think that's so important, because you're going down a rabbit trail that just is not good. I tell students this all the time. When we're teaching doctrines, I very rarely teach on Satan. And all my students, like all of them, they're like, hey, why didn't we ever talk about Satan? I'm like, that right there. Like, because you're so curious about it. And I was like, and once you go down that road, like, you can't unsee it. And it's like, why do you want to know about something
that's... It's like a breeding ground for him to just, like, wiggle his way.
Because he's like, hey, yeah, talk about me. Talk, like I would love for you to tell him exactly who I am, what I'm all about. You know, that's that whole thing. So, man, I think that's tough. I mean, I don't know if we're giving our greases here or not, but, like, it's kind of the greasiest part to me is like there are so many like podcasts and documentaries. Yeah, it's a big genre,
but like it is humongous.
Yeah, and
it's so readily available. Like, why? You know, it makes money, but if there's so how many true crime podcasts are there right now?
Well, so according to YouGov poll, it found that 57% of Americans say they consume true crime content, which that means more than half.
Holy cow.
Half of Americans are in it. More women, 61%, than men consume true crime. So women are at 61%, men are at 52%. Adults under 65, 61% are more likely to consume true crime than other adults, 42%. TV shows, 52% of television right now has to do with true crime.
I've never watched any kind of like TV show, like the cop shows. Is that what it's talking about? Like,
I don't know if, well, yeah, because that's crime.
Like, what is it? NCIS.
I bet you all those would fall into that. Yeah.
I have not.
But listen to this. Potential negative impacts. Why are these not on the box? Like, this is so funny to me that TV doesn't do this. Yeah. Because... Okay, so I
think it does. TVMA.
It does,
but nobody listens.
Okay, so you get it in the top corner, right? You get it where it says like contains like sex, smoking, whatever the case is, all of those things. But they don't put like a disclaimer, this may cause. So like at the beginning of the thing, like they never put like, hey, true crime content can lead to adverse mental health effects for some individuals. It can also result anxiety, mixed effects on the families and victims and the communities where crimes have taken place. And some argue that true crime content can reduce victims' lives and tragedies to marketable content, potentially dehumanizing them.
It does.
That's crazy.
It does. It makes a show out of it.
There's no disclaimer on any of those shows that say that. Like before you start, it's kind of funny because you watch a YouTube video and it's like, hey, if you have what's the thing where you flash like lights flashing, you could have seizures. Like this video contains things that could throw you in an epileptic seizure.
Yeah.
True crime's like, hey, enjoy this.
This could make you depressed. This could cause issues
could make you
for
crazy.
The family. Like there's so.
Would you want that though? If you had something horrible happen to you, would you want somebody to come in and be like, hey, we're going to make a TV show out of this?
Can we interview literally everybody around you and around this situation? No, I think that's half of the problem too, is so I have a friend, by the way, there is well over 20,000 true crime podcasts right now.
That's wild.
20,000. There's not that many murders, guys. There cannot be that many murders. Maybe there are, but anyways. So I have a friend who she used to do a true crime podcast.
Okay.
And she, first and foremost, she was like, it is so much work. She said that when she was doing it, she was like, I felt like I was in English class again doing like research papers.
Oh, because
it's so much. And she was like, and you have to make sure that the facts are correct, because if they're not, then it's evidence. Like if you found something, that's evidence that could be used in a court of law.
Yeah.
And
which is the case with cereal. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is insane that somebody who is a complete third party who is just talking about it has that much pull in somebody's life.
Yeah.
That's insane to me, because it's just speculation from that third party.
But they're like, hey, here's another point of view. Like, what if this happened? What if this happened?
Which I guess is what detectives do. I guess that's what they do.
But
I don't know.
Detectives. We're the neighbors that are watching the neighborhood out of our window.
But anyway, she was saying that
Carol, it's Judy. Do you know what's going on down the road? Because I see your lights on.
How many times have you like just peered out the window like, I wonder what's happening?
I do all the time. I live in a small town.
I had one time, I had somebody.
We have a Facebook group called Nosy Neighbors.
That's true. That's true. I once had somebody pulled over right outside of my window, but like it was too close to outside of my window. So I went upstairs and opened the window and sat there and listened to the whole thing.
Why? There it is. That's true crime though. That's because you're intrigued. You're like, oh, it's not me.
I'm like, what did they do? Like,
right.
And then I was kind of like, is your car going to stay in our yard? Because I need to mow soon.
But I think there's a little bit of like at least I'm not that bad either. Right? Like, so you look at that and you go, oh man, my life's not that bad. We love to compare each other.
We do.
Like, there's a lot of times I was in one of the surrounding communities. I won't say which one.
Okay.
But I was in and I was driving by. I was with one of my daughters, and there was a van, and I mean, hoarder stuff, like just all over the place.
Yeah.
Some sort of dispute. They were probably living out of their van. There was junk everywhere, like junk,
like outside of the van.
It looked like they had a fight, and then there was like 2 squad cars, and they're like trying to like talk about it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I look over at my daughter. I'm like, "What a mess!" And she's like, "Glad it's not me." That's it, there. Like at least we're not that bad. To make yourself feel better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, so back to the girl who had the podcast. She was talking about like you have to be super careful with all of this stuff. But then she said it started getting really dark because somebody messaged her and said, I have evidence of a murder that took place.
I'm out.
I don't know who to get this to. Can you please talk about it on your podcast? And she's like, I'm just a podcast, like a host.
Yeah.
What?
That's a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, like she was like, they started like calling me every single day. Like they figured out my phone number and they were calling, trying to get this story told because they're like, they didn't feel like the justice was being served in the case that they were a part of, or their family member was a part of, something like that. And she's like, it got to a point where like, I had to go to the cops and say this person is like.
Can you imagine like the police officers do like,
me.
how do you know this? You're like, I have a true crime podcast.
I'd be like, congratulations.
Yeah, like, I mean, what officer's giving you credibility on that?
That, like, does that make you an accomplice if, like, proven guilty because that person sent you evidence and you didn't do anything with it? Like, that stresses me out.
Well, and there is, like, those are the concerns, right? Like, those are concerns of true crime, like, ethics. Like, not only are you exploiting victims and families, but you're also, and glorifying criminals, but you're also lacking sensitivity. So you're like, hey, this horrific thing happened, like, but it will make good content.
Yeah.
Which is why I've always thought it was weird that going back, this will link into the celebrity culture one, but going back and linking into like tabloids, like that's not good.
Yeah.
You're going into people's lives with a camera.
Yeah.
You're taking pictures. That's their life. Like, what are you doing?
Living.
And you're exploiting them for that. Like, plus, whether it's tabloids or true crimes, there's so much like misinformation, speculation.
And there's so many people too who are so quick, especially in this day and age of technology. We are so desensitized at this point to literally everything. And so like, what was it? I was just watching something and somebody commented this horrible thing of like, you should go and die to like a family member. You know what I, like it was like saying this to the family member of the person who committed this crime. But it's like, I as a mom, like if Miles or Owen ever grow up and God forbid, like
they might not.
If they grow,
they might not.
If they grow up and like God forbid, like
something bad happens.
Bad happens.
Yeah.
I did my best to raise my kids. Like at some point, yes, there's other things that take place, but like I was just their mom.
Yeah.
And like you're almost
you're accountable for them, but once they like get to the point where they're making decisions, like and we tell parents this all the time, like, hey, like if your kid made a decision after like, you know,
their frontal cortex has been fully developed.
Like, people still have to make their own choices.
Yeah.
So, and the reverse of that is true too, as well, because people who are older still make their own choices. I mean, how many people like go south like 50, 60 years old?
Yeah. And so like, then there's not only the attack on the individual who committed this crime, but there's an attack on their family. And they're like, it just gets to be so wild and so big. Like I would never want me attacked for something that my kid did as a full grown adult.
Yeah, I keep waiting for it to happen in our community because a couple of years ago there was a situation that happened that was like, and we don't have to bring it up, but like it was very like what I would call true crime-esque. Like, and nobody has gone to the story yet.
Yeah.
But it's there. Like, it's totally there. And it's wild. So, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised because the person that I know who has a true crime podcast didn't do it.
Didn't touch it.
But it's a small town. Like,
right.
Who wants to dig up all of that settled dust?
Well, and then you're that person, right? Like, you're that, because anytime you do anything of substance, there's always going to be pushback for it. Like, we all know that. But when you live in a small town, which is kind of like a campground that we live in, you have to understand that there's some things that, like, you're going to be ousted in the whole community if you go down that road.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I don't understand true crime. Like,
it's wild.
I get too stressed out.
I get it in regards to, like, what we've been talking about. Like, I get it. I get why there's a fascination for it.
Yes.
Because if anything, it just validates my faith like so much more. Because I'm like, you're just proving like everything in Scripture right. There's that. Would you have any grace there? Like, can you think of anything?
So I
there?
do, only because.
Like, should this even exist? Like, because right now we're sitting here going, "Hey, no, this has got to go."
It's still bad. But I think that it has, especially more so for like women, has made women a lot more aware that like these things can happen in broad daylight. You just need to kind of like, this is the world we live in now, kind of thing. So it's kind of like, it's not put people on guard, but you're a little bit more eyes open.
It is funny though, because if you do the statistics, I was just reading a book about this. This was last year, and they're like, take kidnappings, for example. Kidnappings right now are, percentage-wise, way lower than what they used to be. But you would think they're higher because
the candy sucks now. I can't believe I said that.
But, yeah, and everybody's used to it, right? Like, why am I taking your candy? I got, like, bunches of it at home.
Parade last year. I don't need yours.
I got candy from Halloween in 2022. Like,
anyways.
Yeah, but there's like, things are not that bad.
Yeah.
So you have the appearance where it's like, this is horrendous and horrible, but really, like, crime for the most part is down, depending on where you live. Now, if you live in like Cabrini Green or something like that, like, might not be the case.
I don't even know what you just said.
You don't know where Cabrini Green is? It's in Chicago.
What are you saying? Is that a neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, you're welcome. The only grace that I would have, like, man, and I'm going to say these so lightly, like, because we have to be really careful here. Like, I'm kind of weird when it comes to educating people, because I think there's some things that you shouldn't be educated on.
Yeah.
I just think there's things. So, like, there's going to be a lot of people out there be like, well, it raises awareness. At what point, though, are we raising awareness to, like, an unhealthy?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
like if you go and talk to your kids about sex, right? Like there's
you're not going into the details.
Yeah, you don't pull out like PowerPoint presentations. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're not going back to like, hey, let me show you a honeymoon picture. You know, that's not what you do.
If anybody has, that's a weird conversation.
You're a psychopath.
Your kid was squirming. They were nervous.
Yeah, like that's. So I always like. Yes, there are some like educational values to it, but at the same time, I'm like, what point does education become unhealthy?
Yeah. I have like, because it makes me too, like, I can't get in to listening to true crime.
I couldn't even tell you last time like I ventured down. Serial would be the last one. And the only reason was it was just so well done.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, so there was one documentary that I watched. Well, and it depends on what true crime is, because I'm thinking of like the murder ones, but like I just watched something about the mom who like held her kids in the basement.
Oh, yeah. You know that would be the same thing. Yeah.
And so they
would all fall in the same genre, if you ask me.
So like I'm thinking specifically the murder ones, but like she didn't murder anybody. She just like held her kids in her basement.
Which is still twisted.
Wild.
Yeah.
There was a whole background, and so I don't, but like,
yeah, because there's people who are like, oh, it's prevention and ethical storytelling, and I'm going, is it? Like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, at what point does this line move?
Yeah.
To where you're like, okay, like, it's kind of like we were talking about this the other day. I remember when I was a kid. I hate saying that because it's true though. Like everybody can do it. So here's what happened. In my house at 5:00, we always ate dinner together. Like every single night, at least 5 nights a week, we ate dinner at 5:00 p.m. We still do like as much as we possibly can. After dinner, everybody cleaned up dishes, right? After dishes were cleaned up, my dad sat down and he watched the nightly news. It was at 6:00. I'll never forget it. So like he watches the news. Sometimes it was at 9:00 if he missed it. Like I think there was a 5:00 and 9:00 news. So depending on which one, you know, he could hit, he hit it. The news got on. I could tell you verbatim how the news went. Here's what's happening in the world. Here's what's happening in town. Here's what's happening in sports. Have a good night. It was half hour long.
Nice.
That's it. That's it.
It's easy.
It was the whole thing. Like I will never forget it. Now it's like, here's what's happening in the world. And then this huge, like, you know, like dialogue of like how evil and twisted people are. And then my opinion on that and all this other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinion.
What is happening?
There's a lot of opinion.
Like that just drives me crazy. Just say what's going on and then move along.
Which is why we all like the news source that we both have.
I will plug you if you please sponsor us 1440.
How do they hear?
I don't even know. Like who's listening?
Who's our contact, guys? We need 1440.
I love the 1440.
I love it. It has become
it's
just enough news that I'm not like stressed out.
Yeah.
I can stress myself out if I want to by clicking all of the little.
You can go down the rabbit hole.
Go further.
Go down the rabbit hole.
You know,
if you want.
but I like for the most part, I at least know what's happening.
I love it.
And then it's done, and it's just the fact of these are the things that are happening in the world. It's wonderful.
It's funny. There's an article that's out, and basically the guy says a responsible approach to true crime should prioritize ethical reporting, victim advocacy, factual accuracy, while avoiding unnecessarily dramatization or glorification of criminals. That's a really good definition. Yes, a report on the facts. This is what happened. This is why it's a tragedy. Moving along. Like, here's what we do to not have this happen again.
Yeah. Which is, I think, I don't know. Because I don't listen to them a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Anyway, anything else?
Oh, no. I want to hear, though.
Yeah, let's do that.
I want to hear from the listeners who only talk to us when we aren't here.
Hey, we're back. You're welcome.
Do you listen to true crime? And like, what is your...
Are you one of the 52% of Americans that do?
Yeah.
That's
like,
crazy to even think about. What's the draw?
What is your draw to true crime?
Yeah.
Because
Why you do that? Why you do that, buddy?
I get it to an extent, but I don't watch the like scary things about like the big time, what they're doing.
Yeah. What else do you want to hear? Anything?
No, I think that's kind of it. Like, what draws you to true crime?
I got one.
Oh.
If something happened to you, would you want it to be covered?
Oh.
Like, I think that really flips the whole, like, so if you if whatever you watch or listen to, if that happened to you, would you want that to be publicized?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, why? If the answer is no, then why do you watch it? Like, just like if that was your kid, if that was your mom or dad or happened to you, would you want that to be publicized exactly the same as it's being publicized right now? And if the answer is yes, why? If the answer is no, what's up with that? Then why are you still in it? Why are you still doing that, bro?
Change that.
Change it. All right.
Anyways, I think that's all I got.
That was good.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, that made me think. Like, you know what else can make you think? When you think, who could I share this podcast with?
I was like, where are you going with it?
Who could I send this to? This is probably the best podcast I've ever heard in my whole entire life. I should share it with my friends and my family.
Do it.
My coworkers.
It's good, clean family fun.
It is.
We don't talk about murder
today. Like, if you had little kids in the car, like, hello.
Probably shouldn't have done that.
I'm sure you're going to have a lot of conversations with your children about what we just talked about.
I hope you read the title and were like, I'm not going to listen to this one.
Yeah, we might have to detour on that one. Anyway, hey, don't forget to share your thoughts with us. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from you guys, actually.
Yeah.
It means a lot to us. Even if you're just saying, hey, like, where were you at last week? Hey, Kim was moving and she's working, so move it along, Stanley. But if you have stories, questions, or even suggestions for future topics, you can drop us a line. greaseandgracepod@gmail.com is the best way to go. And then whatever your platform is, we're on, I think, at least 6 podcasting platforms. So whichever one that is, you can rate, comment, subscribe. You can share it with your friends and your family. And then you can drop a line to us if you want via social media. We're old school, but we still use Facebook.
We do.
And you know what? That's okay.
We use it.
And I don't care if you're
post on it.
College kid and you don't have Facebook. Maybe it's time you get one.
I feel like everybody has a Facebook.
Here's the deal. You're getting older and you might want to get a Facebook. Because where else are you going to put all your pictures at?
Oh, Lanta.
Of all the places that you have these digital photo albums, they need to be on the book.
Yep.
Mark Zuckerberg says yes.
Exactly.
He is approved.
Exactly.
All right. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.
See you later.